As the film starts, we see a terrific manor named Damnation House, where Mrs. Voorhees is facilitating a gathering and engaging her visitors. Suddenly her girl Megan Voorhees shows up and pees before everybody, causing shame to her mom to conceal any hint of failure. Mrs. Voorhees makes sense of that her girl is unwell, and she out of nowhere begins hitting her head on the ground. It is then, at that point, uncovered that Megan is moved by the malicious soul of Hugh Kane, the chateau's previous proprietor, known for his mercilessness and underhandedness. Following this, two ministers, by the name of Father McFeely and Father Harris, show up to play out an expulsion on Megan. Upon going into her room, they saw the young lady being completely moved by the soul. Seeing this scene, Father McFeely attempts to escape from that point. However, Father Harris demands they continue with the expulsion. He then, at that point, recounts the request to oust the apparition, yet the soul attacks Father McFeely to take part in sexual movement. Well, they start to make out. Father Harris intercedes and tells them to stop. The apparition becomes rankled by this and continues to upchuck on both of the clerics. Later they clean themselves up and attempt to play out another expulsion. Presently, however, the apparition affronts them. Father McFeely becomes disappointed and takes out a firearm, shooting a fired straight into Megan's head. The scene movements to after 1 year, where we are presented to a teacher named Oldman and his colleague Dwight, who is restricted to a wheelchair. Both of them are getting ready to explore the powerful events occurring at Damnation House. They plan to utilize a lot of guileless young people as a phantom for the paranormal movement, as well with respect to elderly person to seek after heartfelt experiences with the female understudies. The gathering of 7 understudies that have been chosen for this examination incorporates Cindy Beam, Shorty, Brenda Pal, Alex, and Theo. In the following scene, the teacher welcomes generally his understudies to spend the end of the week at the Damnation Manor, guaranteeing that they will go through a mental investigation on rest, loss of motion. Little do the understudies realize that they are going into a creepy, scary place. Normally the understudies are excited at the possibility of the explore and consent to the teacher's plan. Subsequently, Budiff admits his sentiments to Cindy and asks her out on a date. However, sadly for him, Cindy is as yet mending from a terrible separation and considerately turns him down, recommending that they remain companions. Not long after, Amigo runs up behind Cindy and gives her a strap wedgie in the secondary school foyer, believing it's not unexpected companion conduct. Minutes after the fact, Cindy shows up at the Slope House Chateau and thumps on the entryway. At the point when nobody answers, she heads inside and meets a discourteous and revolting Amazon parrot that can talk. Disregarding it, she begins investigating the region and experiences a man with deformed hands and is terrified by his appearance. Anyway, the man presents himself as Hanson and makes sense of that he is the house's guardian. Cindy is fairly feeling better and illuminates him that she is an individual from Teacher Oldman's review bunch. Hanson accompanies her to her room, and on the way a toy comedian out of the blue smacks her from behind, which weirds out Cindy. And when they arrive at the room, Hanson moreover acquaints her with a dark feline that has been in the family for ages. Later on, Dwight and Teacher Oldman guilefully put cameras all around the manor, even in the washroom, wanting to keep an eye on the young ladies. Not long after, Hanson shows up and illuminates them that every one of the understudies have shown up. They all accumulate for supper, and Cindy inquires as to whether here a young lady named Megan was moved by. Teacher Oldman excuses it as a gossip and prevents the presents from getting phantoms. Hanson brings the food he prepared. However, everybody gets disgusted when he contacts it with his bizarre-looking hand. Furthermore, accordingly they all leave the table without eating anything as the gathering advances toward their room. They experience a soul who welcomes them to make a move. They alternate playing until everybody resigns to their individual rooms. Later, Cindy hears a voice cautioning her of a risk and offering assistance. The soul trains her to actually take a look at the music room, yet before she can do so he tosses a ball at her face, making her fall. Sandy is upset and lets mate know that since they're companions, it doesn't mean he can deal with her like one of the young men. Rather, she requests that he be delicate, since she's simply a young lady. All at once they spot a few ridiculous impressions, prompting a creepy room. Once they get inside, they track down an old paper with a title about Hugh Kane and his significant others passing. Moreover, they go over a canvas of Hugh Kane's significant other, Caroline, who looks basically the same as Cindy. All at once the feline shows up before them, so the team snatches a secretive box and escapes. They're as quick as they can. A while later, the phantom of Hugh Kane emerges from the case and afterward continues to get physically involved with Alex, who is dozing in her room. Alex is at first frightened by this, yet she kind of partakes in the inclination and comes with it. After they're done, they sit together and have a smoke. Anyway, things veer off in an unexpected direction when Alex communicates her advantage in having a relationship. What's more, becoming Mrs. Kane. Hearing this, the apparition gets terrified and escapes the room in a rush. Meanwhile, the wicked feline shows up in Cindy's room and starts going after her. She attempts to shield herself by getting the feline, yet it, as it were, makes the feline angrier. Angrily, the feline gets a jug and breaks it. Prepared to go after Cindy, the two participated in a warmed-hit battle with the feline arrival. A strong blow that thumps Cindy oblivious. After she awakens, Cindy reports to the teacher that had feline gone after her, yet the teacher excuses her cases and recommends that the feline could basically be upset, not had, and on second thought he tells Theo to accompany Cindy back to her room. What's more, ensure she is no problem at all. On the other hand, while Ray is working out, the spooky figure of you shows up and has an unpleasant toy jokester close by. Before Ray could in fact appreciate what's happening, the comedian hauls him under the bed and attempts to go after him anyway. Quickly counter-assaults and releases a wild attack on the comedian, constraining it to take off in dread. Later on, Cindy opens the secret box and finds Caroline's diary inside. As she peruses through it, she figures out that Hugh Kane had an unsanctioned romance with their sitter. It is uncovered that once Caroline found out about the undertaking, she ended up being so disturbed that she killed Hugh prior to finishing her own life. However, things deteriorate when Sydney understands that she looks a great deal like Caroline, and this might be the explanation why Hugh is currently after her out of nowhere. Caroline's phantom assumes control over Cindy's body. What's more, changes her appearance to attempt and entice her teacher. At first, the teacher gets bulldozed. However, he quickly sees Ray's picture in her and drives her away, and seconds after the fact, Cindy wakes up from the apparition control and understands that she's in a similar room where Caroline got Hugh with the sitter. In the meantime, Shorty is in his room partaking in weed and dealing with a little weed plant. He waters it and sits in front of the television. However, for reasons unknown, the plants begin becoming super quick. Abruptly, the weed plant wraps Shorty in a bed sheet and sets his head ablaze. With smoke, he shouts for help and his companions rush in to see what's going on. As of now, Shorty believes that the Weed's family is distraught at him for smoking them anyway. Mate acts the hero for certain bites and the plant's discharge Shorty before cheerfully going outside to partake in the treats. The next morning, the group gets together and discusses The terrifying stuff that happened the evening before. As they talk, Cindy shares the truth about Hugh and Caroline's relationship, which eventually prompted their demises. She even shows a photograph of Care aircraft and everybody is shocked at the amount she seems to be Cindy. They all begin to imagine that the spot is tormented and begin examining how they can leave quickly, frightened out of his psyche. Yet he attempts to converse with Teacher Oldman, yet he hears a discussion between the teacher and Dwight. Incidentally, Dwight is moreover asking the teacher to leave, promptly guaranteeing that things have gone excessively far, yet the teacher doesn't concur and needs to continue onward with his explore. He asserts that he has locked every one of the entryways and gives Dwight the keys to guard them. Hearing this, Amigo quickly hurries to his companions and cautions them about the risk they're in. He makes sense of that they can't leave since the entryways are locked and Dwight has the keys. Sophia moves forward and chooses to assume control over issues. She heads toward Dwight and attempts to engage him with her being a tease abilities to get the keys. Notwithstanding the boo he has, Dwight controls himself and lets Theo know that he can't give her the keys, understanding the animal power is the main way. Theo smacks his head and figures out how to take the keys. Somewhere else, the teacher is visited by the soul of Victoria Crane, who was Hugh's sweetheart in the past. She attempts to tempt him and prods him, and a couple minutes after the fact, Victoria's content winds up killing the teacher simultaneously. Eucane hinders every one of the ways out in the manner to trap the leftover individuals inside, acknowledging they need to collaborate.